What's better than a D&D character? Well, that's a D&D character with a gun! Alright, I am back with another video, and today we're doing another Dungeons & Dragons build. 5th edition specifically, I guess. We are now doing a Gunslinger build, which is basically me trying to take advantage of the one kind of weapon type that we don't get in Baldur's Gate 3, that being firearms. I mean, there's also nets and slings, but mostly guns, because come on, playing a tabletop character with a gun, that's just cool. And what is, in D&D, one of the best classes to use with firearms? Well, that's Artificer. So, as it has been long requested on this channel, I am finally doing an Artificer build. Now, with these D&D builds, I do make them with the idea that they can be translated into Baldur's Gate 3 with mods. In this case, the 5e Spells mod, the Artificer mod, and the Level 20 mod. All will be linked in the description, and you can kind of, make sure you read all the mod pages so you know which mods to download and all that sort of thing. However, this build can 100% be recreated in Baldur's Gate 3. It won't play the exact same, which is why I'm not saying this is a D&D or like a Baldur's Gate 3 modded build. Rather, this is a D&D build that can be translated into Baldur's Gate 3, but there might be slight gameplay differences, but overall, it will still work. So, the idea of this character is to use Artificer to kind of create a Western-themed gunslinger character, like a cowboy-type deal, which is a concept I've explored on this channel before with my True Striker build, but overall I felt like this is really going to capture that essence much, much more, and I wanted to kind of subvert the trope a little bit and kind of make this character like highly intelligent, like they are a more modernized fantasy version of a Western gunslinger, and as such are kind of able to use their high intelligence to be able to tinker with things, modify their weapons and such, and do a bunch of interesting things with it. So, and again, kind of making an intelligence-based character is a nice thing to do with this game, because obviously in Baldur's Gate 3, yes, there's Eldritch Knight and Arcane Trickster, but Wizard is really the only thing that you really want intelligence for most of the time. And so it's nice to kind of have a different build that primarily uses intelligence. As always, a full written write-up of the build will be available in the description below if you don't feel like listening to this video and kind of hearing my rationale for a lot of things, as well as a level 10 character sheet that you can use right away. So, without further ado, let's get into the build. For our race, we're going to be playing a variant human. Now, the reason I wanted to play a variant human is because the stat spread for this build is pretty simple overall. We can use those 2+1s really nicely, but I mainly wanted to grab a feat at level 1, and this build is going to be a little bit power buildy, which I don't usually do on this channel, but you know what, I saw an opportunity and I wanted to take it. So, of course, we're taking the feat Sharpshooter. Ranged weapon attacks will not have disadvantage on long range and ignore half cover and 3/4 cover. This is going to make you an absolute dead shot, which is awesome. But the big ticket item here is the obvious thing. With a ranged weapon that we are proficient with, we can choose to take a -5 penalty on the attack roll for a +10 to the attack's damage. So it works the exact same way as it does in Baldur's Gate 3. Obviously we have, the additional things of, being able to, get around cover, which is great, but also that extra damage is going to be really good, and we're going to have a lot of ways to mitigate that -5 penalty by the time this build kind of hits the general level that I want to be. I kind of try to aim for these D&D build videos to be around 10 to 12 levels, with the rest of the levels kind of just being, filler stuff if you get that far. So by level 10, this build is going to be very strong. You'll see. As for our ability scores, we have an 8 in Strength, a 16 in Dexterity, a 14 in Constitution, a 16 in Intelligence, a 10 in Wisdom, and an 8 in Charisma. Charisma and Strength we just flat out don't need for this build. You can let the other caster, who is a Charisma-based caster, that's in the Bard or the Sorcerer, be the face of the party, maybe if you're even using one of my other builds on the channel, D&D builds. I mean, this is my second one, there was only one other one, but maybe in the future there will be more, who knows. Constitution is at 14 because it's a nice middle ground, and I'm not as worried about Constitution with this build. We are going to be A-ranged characters, hopefully we will be able to kind of take advantage of battlefield tactics and stay out of the fight. The big, thick fighting as much as we need to, and Dexterity and Intelligence are at 16 because, well, they're our main stats, Dexterity for attacking and AC, as well as Intelligence for spellcasting, so we absolutely want those high. As for the background, I mean, what is more Western gunslinger than a bounty hunter. So with the background, we've gone with urban bounty hunter, meaning that we are in frequent contact with people in our chosen segment of society. So maybe we have underworld connections, maybe we just have a sort of bounty hunter network that we work with, or perhaps we even work for like the government, perhaps we're some sort of like debt collector or something like that. Maybe working for the bank here in Baldur's Gate perhaps, or if you're playing in a different setting, I don't know, get creative. Speak to your DM, that's how these things work. These people might be associated with members of the criminal underworld, yada yada yada. This connection comes in the form of a contact in any city I visit, or we visit, and they are a person who provides information about the people and places of the local area. So just from the background, we get a lot of extra roleplay opportunities. The DM gets an opportunity to create this kind of like shady informant NPC, which I think is really fun, and it gives you a bit of a leg up whenever you're exploring new places. And again, gunslingers like to travel a lot, so, you know, when exploring a new place, immediately having a contact works out quite nicely. It also gives us some skill proficiencies and such that we like, which I'll get into in a minute. Now, in my last D&D build, I recommended using the gold buy method, but here, I'm going to recommend you take the starting equipment for Artificer here, as we are going to be starting off with Artificer. This is going to give you any two simple weapons of your choice, a light crossbow and 20 bolts, which is going to have to replace our pistol until we can get one, because by default pistols cost 250 GP, and even with the highest possible rolls for starting gold, we can only have a maximum of like 200, I believe, so you're going to have to get some money to buy a pistol, or maybe convince your DM to let you have one at the start. If they're cool with that, they might not be. And for the record, I understand that there's like a Western-style revolver in D&D, but it seemed a bit too overpowered. It was a 2d8 gun. It's a one-handed ranged weapon with 2d8 of damage and 6 shots before needing to reload. That felt pretty strong, especially for early in the game, so I've decided to base this build around the regular pistol, which is kind of like a flintlock pistol, so it's one shot and then you have to reload. It's a 1d10 of damage instead of a 2d8 as well, so it's not as powerful. It's about as strong as a longsword, but you wield it in one hand. That's kind of the one I'm basing this on, just in case you're curious, but if your DM allows you to use a revolver, then absolutely go for it. You're also going to get, as part of your starting equipment, you're going to get studded leather or scale mail. Take the scale mail. And you also get thieves' tools and a dungeoneer's pack. We want those thieves' tools, so perfect for us. Let's get into the leveling scheme now. Of course, as I just said, we're going to be starting with Artificer. This is going to give us magical tinkering, allowing us to, as an action, we can use our thieves' tools or another artisan's tools of our choice. We get a lot of tool proficiencies and, you know, other proficiencies between bounty hunter and artificer, so pick your poison as far as those are concerned. And it allows us to give a special property to a non-magical small object, or tiny, I guess it says. The object can shed a bright light. It can relay a recorded message whenever it is tapped by another creature. The object can continuously emit your choice of odor or a non-verbal sound. Basically tuning into the lo-fi stream or something with that non-verbal sound thing, I don't know. And a static visual, or maybe a static visual effect can appear on the object's surfaces, and it can be like a picture or something, so you kind of just get to make these small, mundane items. I mean, I've given very poor descriptions, you'll see everything you need to see on screen, and it's just a little bit of flavour and good roleplay opportunity. Remember that you have these, because they can be quite fun. We do also get spellcasting as a level 1 artificer, and as such we get to know 2 cantrips. The 2 cantrips that I've chosen for this build are Mending and Prestidigitation. I'm not too interested in using too much offensive magic with this build. I want to focus more on the gunplay aspect, so I decided that some, utility and roleplay cantrips would be quite nice. Mending is actually going to be extremely important for this build. If you've played an Artificer, you probably know where I'm going with this, but for those of you that don't, stick around. And Prestidigitation, again, is just one of the better roleplay cantrips in the game. It's just nice to have, especially with the kind of cleaning aspect. Again, I imagine this guy as a kind of world traveler, and I think he would know how to, keep himself clean, to stave off disease and other, gangrenous things. So I think Prestidigitation makes a lot of sense. We're also going to get 3 prepared spells, because Artificers are prepared spellcasters, which is very nice, so you can change these up if you like with pretty much no penalty, but the ones I kind of want to focus on here are Cure Wounds, and I think this is literally just having, kind of like a medkit on hand. Again, traveling, getting into a lot of fights as a bounty hunter gunslinger, you want to make sure that, you kind of have a way of healing yourself, so I don't see Cure Wounds as literally casting the spell Cure Wounds. It's like you pull out the healing kit, you pull out the bandages and, you know, the salves and all that, and you get to work. You can patch yourself up quite nicely. Purify food and drink, literally what it says in the tin. Again, if you're out in the wild quite a lot, you probably need to kill and scavenge for food, and as such, you want to make sure it's clean, and water as well, so you probably want to clean it, make sure it's all safe to eat. It just makes sense roleplay-wise. And finally, snare. This is like setting up a trap that can suspend enemies in the air, and it makes total sense for a bounty hunter to kind of do this. Again, if we're hunting for animals for food, again, playing on the Old West theme, then, you know, we'll want snares, as well as if we need to capture our bounty targets alive, snare is going to help with that as well. So those are the 3 spells. I mean, obviously, you can take offensive spells and whatever if you like. These are just kind of nice roleplay options that I quite enjoy. As for our level 1 skill proficiencies with our background and our class, I've gone for Arcana, Insight, Investigation, Perception, Persuasion, and we also get Thieves' Tool proficiency as well. I mean, Arcana is because we work with magic, it makes sense. Insight and Investigation, we're a bounty hunter, we want to tell when people are lying, and we want to be able to investigate scenes. Perception, kind of to do the same, to notice things and so people don't get the jump on us. Persuasion, I kind of just picked because I wanted the dialogue option. Honestly, Intimidation might have been the better call, but I can't remember if Intimidation was allowed for one of our skill proficiencies, so if you wanted to go that way, you absolutely could, and like I say, Thieves' Tool proficiency comes packed in, so that's nice. We can also kind of, you know, be slightly roguish. How fun. At Artificer level 2, we now get one of the most important things we can get as an Artificer, which is infusing items. We can learn up to 4 item infusions and have 2 infused items at a time. Whenever we finish a long rest, we can turn non-magical objects into magic items using these infusions. And also, some of these require attunement, but with this ability, you can attune to them immediately, which is great. But if you infuse too many items, the oldest one you infused will lose its magical properties, so make sure that you are relatively conservative with these kind of effects. Now, because we can only infuse 2 magic items at a time, I'm only going to talk about 2 infusions that I quite like for this build, one being extremely important and a cornerstone of it. We're going for Repeating Shot on our pistol. I'm going to assume that you've got a pistol somehow by this point for the sake of the build. You might not, as such you can use this on the crossbow that you have from starting equipment, but if you've got the pistol, great, and that's what I'm going to be assuming from here on out. So, with Repeating Shot on our pistol, this is the item infusion, the weapon becomes a +1. The weapon needs to require ammunition for this to work, and so it becomes a +1 weapon, so getting a +1 bonus to attack and damage rolls, and it magically produces 1 piece of ammunition whenever it is used to make a ranged attack. So, the weapon now no longer requires ammunition and ignores the loading property. Congratulations, at level 2 of Artificer, you now have an infinite ammo gun. So you get to completely ignore all the faff of reloading, you can just attack with this thing like it's no problem. So now you basically just have a ranged version of a 2-handed longsword with no downsides. Exactly what a gunslinger's looking for. This is a cornerstone of the build, and there's actually one more little thing about this that's very, very important. We can use this infused item, in this case our Repeating Shot pistol, as a spell casting focus. Now here's the kicker, rules as written. This doesn't have to be Artificer spells casted through this focus. This can be spells from any class or subclass, and that's going to be important for later when we multi-class, because we actually do that with this build. So, now we have a infinite ammo pistol that we can cast our spells through. Brilliant. Absolutely love it. The second one here is less important, but it's just a personal choice of mine. You can change this up as you like, but I've gone with the Armor of Magical Strength. It's specifically applied to our scale mail that we started with. The armor has 6 charges, regaining 1d6 expended charges after a long rest. Or at dawn, it says. I don't know if there's a difference there. As a reaction, when being knocked prone, the wearer can use a charge to not be prone, allowing us to maintain that concentration. And when making a strength check or save, the wearer can use 1 charge to add its int modifier to the roll, essentially allowing us to kind of patch up our mediocre strength score, or our pretty much abysmal strength score. We left it at an 8. I don't know, it just feels like this character would kind of patch up maybe their lesser physical strength with an arcane armor or some sort of boost, so I think this is just a nice little bonus. But if you just kind of care more about AC or something, you can get like enhanced defense to give it a +1, but I kind of like this one more flavor and roleplay wise. I think it gives you a bit more versatility in what skill checks you're able to make, so I quite like having this here. And 6 charges is a pretty decent amount. And now, at Artificer level 3 we get to pick our subclass, and I've gone with, well, I mean this is probably pretty obvious, Artillerist. Artillerist Artificer is going to allow us to create an Eldritch Cannon. As an action, we can use Woodcarver's tools or Smith's tools to create an Eldritch Cannon within 5 feet of us, but we can only do it once at a time. For the record, you do also get Woodcarver's tool proficiency at this level if you didn't already have it, so you don't have to worry about that. Now, we can do this once per long rest, or by expending a spell slot of level 1 or higher to create 1 cannon. So essentially what this means is that every long rest, you can create one for free, or if you just expend a spell slot, which you might not be using too many of already since we mostly have utility spells, then bing bang bosh, you've got as many cannons as you need. Now this is important because the cannons do have their own AC and HP, and as such they can be destroyed, but we might not have to deal with that as much as I'll explain in a bit, but just so you know, you might have to recreate this cannon. Now, when you do create the cannon, you can basically decide its size. You can have it be small or tiny. Basically, if it's small, it kind of will work as an autonomous little turret that you can move around the battlefield and command with a bonus action. However, the tiny variant appears as something that is small enough to fit in your hand. And the Eldritch Cannon, we can make it look and appear and function however we like. So now we're dual wielding. We've got a pistol in one hand and the Eldritch Cannon in the other. And because the Eldritch Cannon uses our bonus action to command, in which case fire, we can now use our pistol with our main hand, not needing to reload it, remember, and our Eldritch Cannon with our bonus action in our other hand. We are now a dual gun wielding gunslinger at total level 3. That is freaking cool. But it's not just a regular gun for us. It has 3 different modes that we choose when we create it. The first is the Flamethrower, causing a 15-foot cone of fire damage to spread out in front of us, dealing 2d8 fire damage, and the enemy is forced to make a dexterity save and will take half damage on a success. So if we need a close ranged option, we can go for that. We also have Force Ballista, which I would probably have as the default. With 120 feet of range, it does 2d8 force damage, and if you shoot a creature, it gets pushed 5 feet away. Again, if we kind of want to go for that dual gunslinging vibe, this is probably what I'm going to go for. And there's also the option of Protector, which basically means any creatures you choose within 10 feet have 1d8 plus your imp modifier in temporary HP. Basically, it just keeps everyone a bit healthier. Probably not going to use that one too much, even though it is probably quite useful. Force Ballista would definitely be my default, but the Flamethrower is also a really cool option. But like I say, we're now a dual gun-slinging gunslinger, which is awesome. It feels like Red Dead Redemption 2 here. Brilliant. Basically, as I said before, the cannon has AC, and as such it has aced 18 by default, and it has HP equal to 5 times our Artificer level. At level 3, that means we have 15 HP, which is decent, but there's weird rulings about like how if you're holding the weapon, there's certain effects that like won't damage it. Basically, if it's not actively being targeted, if something hits you, unless the DM kind of rules it weird, it shouldn't take any damage. Like, it shouldn't take any damage from Fireball because you're holding it, but if it was like standing on its own, it would. It's complicated. Make sure you know the exact rulings, or just kind of go over how you want this interaction to work with your DM and see what they allow. Again, remember, your DM can always choose to target the gun in your hand, so be careful. We also do get, as an artillerist, a couple of free spells added to our prepared spell list without needing to actually take a prepared spell slots. Kind of like, Cleric and the like. And as such, we get Shield and Thunderwave, which are 2 really decent options. Shield especially, just that instant defense boost is going to be really nice, and Thunderwave is a nice way to kind of get enemies away from you so you can get back into long-range combat. We also do get another prepared spell at this level, and I'm going for Grease, because I feel like this character having a Grease trap and a bit of battlefield control works out pretty nicely. At Artificer Artillerist level 4, we get to choose our first ASI or feat, and I'm going with an ASI with a +2 to Dex. We're focusing mainly on our pistol combat right now, and this is going to really help out, you know, with the sharpshooter penalty and just having a higher chance to hit and doing a bit more damage with our gun. So I think it makes sense. We also get another prepared spell at this level, and I'm choosing Catapult. I don't know why. It just feels funny to just be able to lob things really far. Maybe even cook up some grenades or something and go boom, boom. I mean, we will get actually a grenade later, but, you know, you get creative with that one. As for level 5 of this build, I'm multi-classing pretty early. The level 5 feature of Artillerist is nice, but it's not something I actually really need for this build, so I want to get into our main multi-class right away so we can start powering up. And it's a pretty simple one. We're going with Fighter. Fighter is going to give us a few things that we want. The archery fighting style, giving us a +2 bonus to attack rolls with ranged weapons, so again, offsetting that sharpshooter penalty. And Second Wind, allowing us to, as a bonus action, regaining 1d10 plus our fighter level in HP. We can use that once per short rest. Now, I originally did go with Ranger for this build, but the way the stats kind of worked out didn't really work, because I kind of wanted to go Gloomstalker for Dread Ambusher to be like a quick draw, but it didn't really work out stat-wise, and the build was a bit weaker, whereas this version of the build is going to be a lot stronger. But that's all we get at Fighter level 1. At Fighter level 2, so total level 6 for us, we're going to get Action Surge, allowing us to, once per short rest, take an additional action on top of our normally allowed actions. Yeah, I mean, you guys know what Action Surge is, I don't really need to explain it to you, it's just going to give us more firepower, which we love. At Fighter level 3, we get to pick our subclass, and now I kind of went back and forth with this one for a bit. I originally went with Battle Master, but I wasn't 100% sure what maneuvers worked with ranged weapons and tabletop, so I kind of scrapped it. And then I was kind of fiddling back and forth, and I was just like, man, what subclass would work really well for this build? And then it hit me. Something that's on theme, will benefit the build, and also uses our intelligence score. We're going with Eldritch Knight. Eldritch Knight is going to allow us to use Weapon Bond, allowing us to bond with up to 2 weapons by spending a short rest with each, and we cannot be disarmed of a bonded weapon, and we can always summon it to us as a bonus action. So now our pistol is guaranteed to be on our person at all times. And I kind of pictured this like kind of fun roleplay scenario where maybe like this character had to go get into like maybe like a tavern or something and had to spend they had to like leave their weapons at the door or something, and then they get into an altercation inside the bar and just summon their gun to them out of nowhere. I think that's a really cool like thing, so I was like, yeah, you know, the ability to have our gun on us at all times, yeah, makes sense to me. And we also do get some cantrips as a Eldritch Knight. Again, this is all using our int, so we're pretty single ability score dependent, which is nice. Well, I mean, we still need dex, but int works as a double spellcasting modifier, hey-ho. As for our cantrips, as I was saying before I went on that tangent, we're going to take Shocking Grasp and Mage Hand. Mage Hand, I think, is quite a nice, useful little spell, and I can almost see it as kind of like a robotic hand that kind of like crawls along the floor and kind of does things like that. Almost like a metallic version of Cousin It, I think it's called, from the Addams Family. You know, the little hand. And Shocking Grasp, because I do want a decent close-range damage option, and I think with our augmented armor, having the ability to kind of shock foes does make sense. And finally, we do get some prepared spells as well. Not prepared spells, but we do get some spells at this level as well. And I've chosen 2, because again, remember, these can be cast through our gun. I've chosen Magic Missile and Chromatic Orb. Magic Missile is basically going to give us homing bullets, which sounds super, super fun. Basically allowing us to do force damage shots, again, kind of similar to our damage ballista, but they can like curve around corners and always hit their target, which is really, really nice. And Chromatic Orb to give us elemental shot types of our choice, being fire, acid, cold, poison, thunder, lightning, all those cool things. And I could just see you like charging up like power shots and firing off a Chromatic Orb through your gun. It feels really, really cool, so I wanted to pick these 2 up. Next up, at Artillerist, Artificer 4, and Eldritch Knight 4, so level 8 total, we get another ability score improvement, and I want to actually take another +2 to Dex here. Even though we do have spells at this level, 16 Intelligence is okay, and I really do want to get that maximum amount of accuracy and power on our main pistol, as that is still kind of our focus here. So that is going to allow us to be at 20 dex, giving us a big bump to our chances to hit and our damage, which I love. We're also going to get 2 more spells, including a spell from from the wizard spell list, which has no restrictions, because usually we're restricted to certain classes of spells as an Eldritch Knight, but every so often we get a bonus spell. My first spell from the Eldritch Knight list is going to be Burning Hands, basically an alternative way to do the Flamethrower without deliberately having to have the Flamethrower Eldritch Cannon, so now you can mix and match with both of your weapons to get the Flamethrower in either way. And then, for our wizard spell list spell, I have chosen Find Familiar. Find Familiar is just a really nice spell, and I mean, again, a lot of gunslingers have animal companions, usually they're horses, and I mean, you could totally buy a horse during a campaign and just have it around, which I would personally recommend for roleplay reasons, but also having a smaller animal companion would be really nice. Heck, you could even take it as like a regular animal companion, or as like a robotic creation that the Artificer has made in this case. But the main reason I want to use it, and you can use any familiar you like, it doesn't really matter, but the main reason I want it is because the Find Familiar can use the Help action, which would give us advantage, which would help offset Sharpshooter. Yes, it's metagamey as hell. No, I don't care. This makes the build way stronger. And also, it gives us an animal companion, which is always fun. Next up at Eldritch Knight 5, so total level 9 for us, we're going to get extra attack, which means now, because of repeating shot and we don't have the reload property, we can now fire our pistol twice per turn without any downsides, which is great, which means now we can make 2 attacks with our action, with our main pistol, and then a bonus action attack with our Eldritch Cannon, so our other gun. I mean, it just makes a ton of sense. Like, that is super cool. Bang, 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 bang. And we can take it even further later on, because now with Eldritch Knight Fighter level 6 we get an extra feat, and I will say I want to take an ability score improvement at this stage to get a +2 to our intelligence, now having a total of 18, giving our spells all a big bump. So now we can just cast spells, utility spells, offense spells, attack with our pistol, we can do it all. It's amazing. And because we have attacks with both our bonus action and our action, we can cast spells and attack on the same turn pretty interchangeably, so everything's all good there. I think this build at level 10 rounds out pretty nicely in having decent utility in all areas. Again, it's more about actually being like a gunslinger and shooting guns and all the magic and kind of the extra stuff, but again, if you're more experienced with Artificer than perhaps I am, then you can get really creative with this, take extra infusions that can do some interesting things, replicate some magic items that maybe I didn't think of, go absolutely nuts. I think, overall, this is a pretty cool build. So like I say, now I think at this point the build has pretty much come online. You can take any kind of leveling scheme you like from here, maybe you want to grab some ranger levels, it's entirely up to you. So from here on out, this is just my recommendations for levels 11 to 20. The final build I would kind of consider for this character is Artillerist 9, Eldritch Knight 11. This is going to give us 2 ability score improvements, namely a +2 to our Constitution to round out our HP, and a +2 to Intelligence to max out our spellcasting ability. But even though those are kind of the simple options, I do think there are some feats to consider. Alert, which would allow us to kind of be even more of a quick draw, not getting us surprised in combat and allowing us to go first in the initiative more often than not, basically just allowing us to quickly pull out our gun and fire right at the start of combat, so Alert could really fit for that gunslinger theme. There's also the Gunner feat. Now, the reason I didn't go with the Gunner feat with this build is because at level 2, we pretty much get most of the stuff that Gunner would give us. I mean, the Gunner would give us a +1 to Dex, which can work, but with the ability scores I've laid out, doesn't really, unfortunately. I would kind of have an odd number. The only thing that Gunner would give us that could be quite useful is we would no longer have penalties to firing our firearms at close range. Now again, we already have close range options, flamethrower, burning hands, magic missile, some stuff like that, so I don't think it's that useful, but if you really just want to make sure that even if an enemy gets up close and personal, you can still fan the hammer at them, that is an option, but I personally wouldn't recommend it. I feel like we got enough coverage with this build as it is, and again, if you play your cards right, you should never really be in a situation where you're forced to be at close range and you don't have an option for it. As long as you stay at good gunslinging distance, you'll be absolutely fine. Now, the Artificer features we'd get at total level 9 would include the level 5 feature, Arcane Firearm, which I briefly touched on earlier. This allows us to turn a wand, rod, or staff into another firearm that adds an extra d8 of damage to offensive spells cast through it. But we already have two really powerful guns, so I didn't really care about it that much. I didn't care about getting it early, but this could make for a more offensive magic blaster if you maybe wanted to, say, use your weapon bond feature to have your pistol and this wand be your two things that you can summon, and then kind of interchangeably switch between the two if you want to focus more on firing shots or you want to focus more on casting offensive spells. It could absolutely work. But at level 9, this is the big ticket item, we would get Explosive Cannon, increasing the damage of our Eldritch Cannon by a d8. So now both the Flamethrower and the Force Ballista could do 3d8 damage, which is really nice. So basically our bonus action attacks would be a lot more powerful. But you can also make the cannon explode, dealing 3d8 force damage on a failed dex save. Probably don't want to do this while this is in our hand, so maybe use the catapult spell to lob your cannon at a group of enemies, maybe if it's already low on HP, and then cause it to explode, dealing a bunch of damage that way, and then just spend a spell slot to resummon another one, and then keep going. This allows us to be a bit more flexible if our gun starts taking damage, and again, more flat damage on all of our attacks is really nice. Now, onto the fighter levels and what that would give us. At level 7 of fighter, we would get War Magic, allowing us to use our action to cast a cantrip, and then make a weapon attack as a bonus action. So if for some reason we need to cast Mending or Prestidigitation, or maybe another cantrip that we got from somewhere else, that doesn't stop us from firing our pistol as a bonus action if we want to. We already have the Ballista bonus action attacks if we really... So this isn't the biggest thing in the world, although our pistol, I think, does do a bit more damage overall. So, it just gives you more versatility that you wouldn't otherwise already have. At level 10, you'd get Eldritch Strike. Whenever you hit a creature with a weapon attack, that creature has disadvantage on the next saving throw it makes against a spell you cast before the end of your next turn. Now, Force Ballista attacks aren't spells, so it won't work, or just Eldritch Cannon attacks, like the Flamethrower, aren't spells, so this won't work for that. But again, if we have spells like Burning Hands and the like, or maybe even Fireball, if you go high enough in one or the other, that can help you, because again, it doesn't specify that these have to be Eldritch Knight spells. These could be your Artificer spells, which we'll get into in a minute. So again, more versatility, again, making it harder for your enemies to make those saving throws means more spells are going to go off, which is going to be great. And of course, at Fighter level 11, we get Extra Attack 2, the sequel, which means now we can shoot our pistol 3 times per turn, and that's our main hand pistol with an extra bonus action shot from our Eldritch Cannon, making us the fastest gun in the West, essentially. Now, you could throw out the other Artificer levels if you don't care about that stuff, but I personally do because I want the extra spells and the like, and go even higher in Fighter for like another extra attack, but I think that's a bit overkill. I feel like I like having the versatility of getting the spell casting from Artificer as well, so I feel like the Artificer 9 Fighter 11 split is just perfect for what we're trying to do here. We still get all our ability scores where we want them, we have extra room for feats. I think it makes sense. Again, you probably won't be taking this character to level 20, and again, I think this build is perfectly fine at the level 10 to 12 range, so experiment and see what you can come up with. Some notable spells that you will be picking up along the way as well. There are obviously, there are some like prepared spells you can get from, what's it called? Artificer. God, Jesus. I actually forgot what it was called for a second. And also, you can get your regular spells from Eldritch Knight as well, leading to a pretty decent amount of spell slots when all is said and done, but these are some notable spells that you can pick up from one class or the other. Rope Trick. This is basically just a weird kind of rope-themed spell. It's the closest thing we're going to get to a lasso. Unless your DM lets you roleplay having a lasso, which would be friggin' awesome, but here's a way to at least get something rope-based. Again, with a Western cowboy gunslinger, we want the lasso. You're also going to get Scorching Ray and Shatter from Artificer as well. Basically, more special shot types, I guess, which is really fun. But we can also grab Fireball and Haste that automatically get added to our Artificer spell list. Yes! Fireball being one of the best kind of like powerful shot types we can get, and Haste just giving us even more attacks, which is amazing. I mean, come on. Now we can shoot our gun even more. And also I could pick up Misty Step from Eldritch Knight, which would be great. Be sure to check the character sheet I've provided in the description for the full list of spells that I haven't mentioned, because there are some other minor ones that I could recommend, but I won't go into full detail here. Again, write-up is in the description. Now, since I considered this build to be pretty well built at level 10, that's where I've decided to do my damage per round calculations. Now, I got the math a little bit wrong last time, because for some reason I keep forgetting that you can't actually roll a 0 on a die, so the median rolls for die are a little bit higher, so hopefully these calculations are a bit more accurate. At level 10, assuming medium rolls, if we make 2 regular attacks plus a bonus action attack from our Force Ballista without the Sharpshooter damage increase, we will be doing an average of about 32 DPR, which is pretty decent. That's about on par with my last build. However, with the Sharpshooter bonus, that number goes up to 52, an extra 20 damage. On a CR10 encounter, that's a lot of damage. We start blasting. So that is the worst impression of Danny DeVito in the world. But yeah, no. That is a lot of damage per round, and that is pretty consistent. I think with Sharpshooter at level 10, you have a +7 to hit, which is still pretty good. Without it, we've got like a +12 to hit, which is great. But with +7 and the ability to gain advantage thanks to our Fine Familiar, we're going to be able to get those high damage numbers off a lot, especially with how much we'll be shooting. But then there's another calculation. We get Action Surge once per short rest, which means we get a big burst damage round once per short rest to use when we need to, against a boss encounter, what have you. Which means those 2 regular attacks that we get become 4 regular attacks, plus our bonus action Force Ballista, and calculating that with the Sharpshooter increase, our burst damage round is 95 damage. I'm not sure I've made a build that powerful on this channel before, Baldur's Gate 3 or otherwise. Maybe Wild Shape builds, perhaps. But that's cool. The fact that I just like that. That is literally taking your pistol and fanning the hammer to just shoot as many shots as you can, and then shooting with the ballista, like with the Eldritch Cannon too. Like, it's so cool. I'm really, really proud of how this build turned out. And that is it. I don't know, like, I mean, obviously, again, this video is kind of like, again, still in its experimental phase with D&D builds. You know, we have the background visuals and the text edited onto the screen. However, I think I might try and show off some modded gameplay in the background of this combat footage. If you don't see that right now, or didn't see it during the DPR calculations, well, I got lazy. But again, like I say, a full character write-up will be available in the description below, as well as a level 10 character sheet for you to be able to use right away in the game if you so choose, or just for reference. Again, if you want to join my Discord server, if you want to find a group to play with, or access the resources I use to make these builds, feel free to do so. Like I say, I've also linked the mods required to recreate this build in Baldur's Gate 3 in the description as well, so feel free to check that out. But that is going to do it for me. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.